All right, welcome back to A Hill with a View. My name is Moshe Hill, and we're at the end of 2025, and I thought there was no more news to break. You know, I thought we were going to do a big wrap-up show, but on Friday, Israel announces formal recognition of Somaliland. Didn't see that one coming. It prompted me to learn a lot about Somaliland, and I'm excited to share that information with you. So first, make sure you like, subscribe, share to the podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure to follow on X, Hill with View. Make sure to follow Instagram, Hill with View. Just follow everywhere and subscribe and share. So this news coming from Israel, very interesting information about Somalia versus Somaliland. I had no idea what was going on there. I knew that there was some tangential issues. I didn't really understand the conflict. I didn't really know the difference between Somalia and Somaliland. I knew that I've heard Matt Walsh talk about it before, especially when with all the Somali fraud stuff going on in Minnesota, what's going on with Somalis coming into America. Apparently, between 15 and 20% of the entire Somalia GDP, which is less than every single state in America. It's like the size of basically a mid-sized county in America. I think it's around $18 billion per year. And 15 to 20% of that is remittances coming from other countries. So Somalia seems to be a completely failed state. And I was wondering, what is the deal with Somaliland? What is this, place that has declared its independence since 1991? No country in the world recognizes it as an independent state. And Israel made history and declared it as an independent state, said it recognized it as an independent state. And after looking into it a bunch, I can't find a better example of the inverse of the Israel-Palestine argument, where Israel is a state, Palestine is not a state. It is a fictional place that every single country, with few exceptions, recognizes as a state, even though there's no border, there's no government, the government is basically Abbas is in the 20th year of his 4-year term. I mean, the whole place of Palestine is basically a fake place. Everyone knows this. Everyone claims the only history they have is history they stole from Israel and from the Jewish people. We all know this. This is just facts. Archaeology proves this. Everything historically proves this, but, let's not get into that right now. And Israel is a successful country, Israel is a democracy, Israel is a moral country, and Palestine, if they were a state, they would be a terror state, they would be a failed state, they would rely on the generosity of the rest of the world, and that is basically what Somalia is. And Somaliland is actually a successful non-state, except for they have borders, they have a government, they have a capital, they know exactly what they're doing. So I asked Grok for a brief history, a brief explanation of Somalia versus Somaliland, and I took the key differences section and I posted it on my X account. And it blew up over there. Then I went to Shabbos, and I turned off my phone. And Saturday night, I saw that it had 150,000 views. Thousands of likes and retweets and a lot of comments. And it just seems to me that this is information that people are interested in. So I decided to do a little more research into it. And so I'm going to read what the key differences are between Somalia and Somaliland. So we got the key differences. We got status of Somalia is that it's an internationally recognized sovereign state, a UN member. Somaliland is a de facto independent since 1991, unrecognized by most of the world, now except for Israel. Somalia, the government is a federal system with ongoing instability, al-Shabaab insurgency, and clan-based politics. So al-Shabaab is a terrorist organization that's trying to take over Somalia. A lot of the money that was stolen in America went directly to al-Shabaab. So basically, American taxpayers are funding foreign terrorist organizations. Somaliland is a stable democratic government with regular elections and peaceful power transitions. Security is Somalia has persistent conflict, terrorism, and piracy. Like its biggest export is pirates. Basically, Somaliland is relatively peaceful and secure with its own military and police. Somalia is reliant on aid remittances, limited development due to conflict. Somaliland is more stable, has its own currency, port deals with like Berbera with the UAE, hampered by lack of recognition. Somalia international relations is full diplomatic ties, central government in Mogadishu. Somaliland, limited informal ties and no UN membership. Now, Somalia is a failed state. Government collapse. Basically, it is reliant on the rest of the world. And it's also a member of the UN Security Council. So the UN Security Council has 10 non-permanent members, 5 permanent members, and one of the 10 non-permanent members has a 2-year term. Currently, one of those members is Somalia. Now, these 15 countries rotate who is in charge of the Security Council or sets the agenda for the Security Council. And starting January 1st, Somalia sets the agenda for the Security Council for a month. The United Nations is a worthless hive of scum and villainy, as many put it. The United Nations is useless. It should be burned. The ground should be salted so nothing could ever grow there again. And or it should be turned into a Trump hotel because it's pretty good real estate in New York City. So the United Nations has Somalia. They recognize Somalia. Nobody else recognizes. Also on the United Nations is a non-member observer state called the State of Palestine, not a state. And only one other non-member observer state is Vatican City. So it's Vatican City and Palestine, and then Somaliland not recognized. Apparently the Kurds are very happy about this. A lot of people in Africa are very happy about this, and a lot of the Muslim countries are not happy about what is going on. So to pull up a map over here, and if you can see this, you got this big area of Africa. This is called the Horn of Africa right here. Yemen is right above it, above the Gulf of Aden. You got Somalia as this big number 7 shaped area. And they got this northern part over here. That's Somaliland. This over here, Hargeisa is the capital. And then, but technically all of this is considered Somalia. And Mogadishu is the capital of Somalia. So you have this whole area over here, and that's right next to Ethiopia. It's right next to Kenya. It's a very Tanzania, Uganda, South Sudan, Sudan. Every single time you hear of a problem going on in Africa, it's near all these different places. It's a terrible thing that happens, and I don't know what's going on over there. To be honest, they're always requiring international aid. They're always requiring a lot of help from the United Nations and from America, and all these different things. So, and then right above it is Yemen, which is being taken over by the Houthis, which are striking at Israel, blocking the Red Sea, blocking the ports. This whole area. So it's really good for Israel to do this. It actually makes a ally of the people of Somaliland. If they do gain their independence, it'd be good for them to be allies. They're fairly close to each other. So that would be very useful. Historical background, both were colonized separately, British Somaliland to the north and Italian Somaliland to the south. In 1960, they united to form an independent Republic of Somalia with the capital in Mogadishu. Tensions grew under dictator Siad Barre's regime, culminating in a brutal civil war in the late 1980s, early 1990s, including heavy repression against northern clans, especially the Isaaq. Then in 1991, Somaliland declared its independence. So interestingly enough, there have been accusations of a genocide against, I mean, listen, when I talk about it's the exact inverse of the Israeli-Palestinian cause. And by the way, all you need to know about this is that every pro-Palestinian person is against Somaliland. So that's all really I need to know. Every pro-Palestinian person and organization denies that there was a genocide in the 1980s. In the 1980s, the Somali government conducted military campaigns in the north, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 50 to 200,000 civilians, primarily Isaaq, and in the events known as the Isaaq genocide. President Siad Barre's regime, after he was the president at the time, after his ouster in the Civil War, northern leaders declared Somaliland's independence, restoring the borders of the former British Somaliland. So there is a historical background over here. The historical background being that this was British-controlled area, so they're like, we want to continue being that controlled area. Somaliland has since held multiple democratic elections, issued its own currency, maintained relative stability. Southern Somalia has experienced ongoing conflict, including insurgency by groups like Al-Shabaab. Interestingly enough, there is a Nur Omar Mohamed who served as a colonel in the Somali National Army under Siad Barre's regime. He held a senior officer position during the 1980s when the army was involved in operations against northern clans, including the Isaaq. The family fled Somalia during the Civil War in the 1990s and resettled in the United States. And his daughter is U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. So basically, Ilhan Omar is the daughter of likely a war criminal, likely who was a colonel in a genocide and then fled the country and settled in the United States, and had a daughter who is now one of the most vocal supporters of terrorist organizations in the United States Congress. She wrote a letter to a judge asking the judge to go light on people who joined ISIS. That is Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, who has not met a terrorist that she hasn't sided with. Her father seems to have been an army colonel during a genocide who fled the country during the Civil War. Her father died in 2020 from COVID-19. It is. I mean, I wish I could make this up. I mean, I did not know this about Ilhan Omar, and I've been following her since before she became a congresswoman, when she was Keith Ellison's chosen successor. Keith Ellison, the former congressman, now the Attorney General of Minnesota. So the Somali community in Minnesota hosts the largest Somali-American population in the United States with over 80,000 residents. And these are refugees from Somalia's civil war, and they established businesses, including daycare centers, participated in politics, and then it seems like they spent a long time, many decades afterwards, scamming the government, scamming the United States government out of billions of dollars. Originally, the report was $1 billion. Estimates have it up to $8 billion. Somalis have scammed out of the state government and probably the federal government as well. So in 2022, the Feeding Our Future scandal involved over $250 million in defrauded federal child nutrition funds, leading to multiple convictions among Somali-American defendants. So, reporting from The Guardian today, FBI deploys more resales to dismantle fraud schemes in Minnesota. Edward Helmore reporting. Kash Patel has claimed that the $250 million scheme that stole COVID aid is tip of the iceberg and alleges state Somalia's population is to blame. The FBI has deployed additional personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota to dismantle large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs, Director Kash Patel said on social media on Sunday. The FBI director said that the agency has already dismantled a $250 million fraud scheme that stole federal food aid meant for vulnerable children during the COVID pandemic in a case that led to 78 indictments and 57 convictions. Patel said the FBI believes this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. Some of those involved in the alleged scheme are being referred to immigration officials for possible further denaturalization and deportation proceedings where eligible. Patel's comments come after federal prosecutors estimate as much as $9 billion has been stolen across schemes linked to the state's Somalia population, a figure nearly equivalent to Somalia's entire GDP. I guess I was wrong. I said they had a higher GDP than that. The FBI director also said he is aware of recent social media reports in Minnesota in which appears to refer to an online report by independent journalist Nick Shirley about a daycare center in Minneapolis that received $4 million despite reportedly having no enrolled kids. The 42-minute video has been viewed 84 million times since it was posted on the 26th of December. Patel said the FBI had surged personnel and resources into state before the video and attendant conversation escalated online. The Trump administration has portrayed Minnesota's Somali immigrant community as a locus of widespread fraud, much of it allegedly perpetrated during the COVID pandemic. And last month, Donald Trump ended legal protections for Somalis in Minnesota and accused the state of being a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity under its Democratic governor, Tim Walz, who was Kamala Harris's vice presidential candidate pick. So this is Minnesota. This is Somalians in America. I wish I could make any of this up. This is insane. Basically, 80,000 people have stolen $9 billion. Obviously, not everyone has stolen it, but there's obviously something's going on in Minnesota with the Somali community. And this is not going to go away. This is despite the media not talking about it. So, pulling from the Media Research Center. So, this is not going to go away. They are, even though the media is not reporting on it, they're trying not to report on it as much as possible. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, announced on Friday that the Wolves are caving in on Democrat Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, updating his committee's probe of the billion-dollar fraud scandal uncovered in the state. In an interview on Fox News Channel, Chairman Comer identified the state whistleblowers who exposed the fraud as the most important people he expects to testify before Congress. So unfortunately, I couldn't get the clip from Fox News, but basically, Comer says the most important people are the state whistleblowers, the state employees who put that tweet out that we're all familiar with a few weeks ago that alerted America to the massive fraud. These state employees are also alleged that they had warned both Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison for years this fraud was occurring and nothing was taking place. So we're going to bring the state employees in. We are going to get their sworn testimony. We appreciate their bravery in coming forward. So now, just be expected, whistleblowers are bad guys again, according to the media. When they're whistleblowers against Trump, they're good guys. When they're whistleblowers against Democrats, they're bad guys. So that's basically how it's going to work. There's also U.S. Small Business Administration Administrator Kelly Loeffler said Friday that she is ending funding to Minnesota. Today, I informed Governor Till Walz that SBA is halting $5.5 million in annual funding to Minnesota pending further review, Loeffler announced in a social media post sharing her letter to Walz and describing millions of dollars of additional potential fraud. So, we got some problems in Minnesota. We got some problems with the Somali community. We got some problems with, Somalia and Somaliland. And, I'm going to be honest, I find all this fairly fascinating. I like it when Israel is not in the news, to be perfectly frank. That is just me. I don't like being constantly bombarded with Israel news. don't like constantly being bombarded with right-wing accounts saying that I'm Israel first because I talk about what they're talking about. But I am very fascinated at this has been the news of the weekend, and the new golden child of the right wing, the guy who went on the new golden child of the right wing, the guy who asked Ben Shapiro about the USS Liberty, the guy who doesn't care about what happened after the U.S. Liberty attack, but only cares about what happened during the USS Liberty attack, has nothing to say about all this information about Somalia. There is a lot. I'm looking at all his posts on social media. He became this guy, Nicky Rudd. He became how he became basically a big star on the Groyper right, I don't know. It doesn't seem organic, I could tell you that much. But all he has to do is, all he's talking about is USS Liberty and Israel and stuff. He calls every Jew Israel first. He's not talking about, he claims to be America first. Every America first account should be talking about what's going on in Minnesota. You would think so, right? You would think that every single America First account would be focused like a laser beam on Somalis coming to this country by the thousands, and then that community ripping off the government to the tune of the entire GDP of their home country. Right? You would think that all they would talk about is this 42-minute video that came around by this investigative journalist. That's all they would talk about today. But they're not. They're only talking about Israel. Let's look at Tucker. So Tucker Carlson, anything? Okay, he's talking about debt. Okay. He's talking about $40 trillion in debt. That's it. Last couple of days, that's his account. He's not really talking about this. Let's look at who else is an Israel firster. Marjorie Taylor Greene is an Israel firster. All she cares about Israel. Okay. Here we go. 5 hours ago. Okay, so she did post about the Nick Shirley video. The Nick Shirley video is the 42-minute video, which I'm going to play in just a second. Just the teaser for it, because I think everyone should watch it, that they did an incredible job. But 5 hours ago, she said, Zelensky today, Netanyahu tomorrow, can we just do America? Yes, let's talk about America. Just talk about America. You don't have to talk about Israel. You don't have to talk about Ukraine. You can talk about Minnesota. You can talk about the fact that California, Los Angeles hasn't rebuilt their houses that were burned down a year ago. You could talk about all these things. But you don't want to. You like talking about Israel much more. So there's this guy, Nick Shirley, who did a 42-minute video, and I think everyone should watch it. I watched half of it so far. I'm going to watch the rest of it later. Exposing Minnesota fraud. This might be my most important work yet. We uncovered over $110 million in one day. Like it and share it around like wildfire. Let me tell you, it has 99.2 million views. 99.2 million views so far. It's time to hold these corrupt politicians and fraudsters accountable. We all work way too hard and pay too much taxes for this to be happening. The fraud must be stopped. That is Nick Shirley.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on?
So yelling in Somalian.
What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question, are there children? There's no children inside this building.
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia like like the Al-Shabaab, and others enrich themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video, we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are making millions of dollars from the government. And we will also be confronting the incompetent government leaders who let this fraud happen. And to make this happen, I met up with a man who's been doing his own investigation for years now, as he has seen the fraud firsthand. His name is David. Let's get into this and be prepared to be shocked. How deep is this fraud here?
So I'm going to pause it there. So I'm going to stop it right there. Hell of an intro. This guy's good. I got to take some tips from him. This is a major issue. So it's not just international news. It is national news. We have massive fraud going on in Minnesota. We got a major issue. I hope that President Trump follows Israel's lead and recognizes Somaliland. I think that that would be a good thing for the world. I think that it would be good to have another democratic, successful country in Africa. That would just be a useful thing to have. I don't see why everyone is backing Somalia in this regard. All these democracies, they're all putting their weight behind Somalia. Why? Why is Canada and the UK and France, who all recognized Palestine as a state this year, not recognizing Somaliland as a state? Like, why don't they? It makes no sense. Nearly every country in the world recognizes Palestine as a state. It's not a state. It doesn't even declare itself to be a state. It could have been a state many times. It could have been a state in 1948. It could have been a state in it was taken over. The West Bank and the Gaza Strip were taken over by Jordan and Egypt respectfully. They never wanted to become a state then. They never demanded their independence from Jordan and Egypt. They didn't want it. Then Israel took over in 1967. Started doing what people do when they take over land. They moved in. They moved in. Israelis build settlements in Judea and Samaria, the biblical homeland of the Jewish people. The center of the homeland, the beating heart of the homeland of the Jewish people. I actually saw a post today that said, "Oh, Samaria is just occupied territory." Samaria, Judea and Samaria. Shiloh was in Samaria. That's where the Mishkan, the first temple that the Jews built in the desert and carried around, they took it apart and they put it back together, and they took it apart and put it back together. As they traveled the desert for 40 years, they set it in Shiloh, which is in Samaria. And it said it was there for 369 years. That's the heartland. And they're like, oh, it's just occupied territory. Like, can't really make this stuff up, that they just don't care about history. There's archaeological studies, there's archaeological digs that prove all this. I'm getting on a tangent. But nobody ever wanted a state. They never declared a state. They could have had a state in 1991, in 2000, in 2008, not 91, 93, I'm sorry, during the Oslo Accords. 2000, during the Camp David with Bill Clinton. 2008 with George W. Bush. Could have done it at any time. During 2019 or 2020, when President Trump unveiled his plan, could have done it. They don't want it. You know who wants it? Somaliland. Somaliland wants a state. They declared independence in 1991. You're going on 35 years of them having declared independence. These are our borders. This is our currency. This is our government. We have peaceful transitions of power. And the democracies, the Western democracies of the world say, nope, no thanks. We prefer Somalia, the place that exports pirates and fraudsters and is a leech on the international community. It makes no sense. But that's international politics for you. International politics make no sense. All right. This has been great. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing a 2025 wrap-up episode. Hopefully I will. If I do, then it's going to be showing up in your feed later this week. Otherwise, please rate and review 5 stars. Make sure to share. Make sure to like. Leave a comment. Email me at ahillwithview@gmail.com. Follow me on social media on x.com/hillwithview, Instagram hillwithview, TikTok hillwithview. You got the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. I mean, everywhere. You can't miss me, all right? You got to look me up anywhere you can. So, until next time, if I don't see you, have a great new year, and make sure to share with a friend.